and the testing was done, and then the tests were botched. And even right now, we don't even know what they're testing. What are the tests testing?
Yeah. Any form of coronavirus, the
results.
60 different kinds of coronavirus. I don't know, pneumonia, heart attacks. Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and we are joined by return guest, former Representative Cynthia McKinney. Always great to talk to you. I hope you're doing well. How's everything going?
Well, Josh, things are not going so well. Well, how can I divide this up? Okay, so I took a walk this morning, and there's no airplanes in the sky. The birds are chirping. The trees are swaying. Mm-hmm. There's no cars on the road. There's no smog. There's no pollution. I walked through the park. As you can see, this is a picture from my park in my neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I walked through the park. The water in the creek is gurgling. And nature is just beautiful. It's beautiful because there's something bad that's happening out there, and we can, discuss that another time, but there's also something beautiful that's happening right now with this pause that we all are taking. If we don't fall prey to the fear porn, we can use this moment to reassess where we are, who we are, and what our values and priorities are. Mm. That's what I've been trying to do, mm-hmm. because this period meets me at a crossroads in my own life, where I have to decide, am I going back to Asia where I have a full life and one that provides an opportunity for gainful employment, which I can't get here in the United States too. Right. Or do I stay here closer to home, closer to what I know, and re-engage with my activism here at home? So these are the things that I'm grappling with. And when I go on these walks in the morning, this is what I think about, as well as enjoying nature that's out there. But yeah, I also understand that people are hurting now.
Right.
And so I drove past the local church, and the National Guard were out there. They were feeding people. And the line was so long, I couldn't believe it. So I was compelled to actually say, okay, I need to volunteer, because I know that in a situation like that, people need to volunteer when they can. So I contacted the organizer and said, okay, I won't be available next week, but after that, count me in, just tell me what I need to do.
Mm-hmm. And as if people aren't yet aware, Cynthia McKinney, who is a former representative, has a hard time getting a job these days because of her activism, because of the work that she did for so many years, her hard work in activism, grilling Donald Rumsfeld, things like that come back to bite you when you try to do good things. But, I like to start with the bad news and end on the good news, leave everyone on a positive note. And so that's why I want to start on this strange world that we're living in right now. How do you describe, what on earth is happening? How do you describe the current Twilight Zone-like state of the world that we're currently living in?
Well, you're absolutely right that it's kind of like the Twilight Zone, right? How did Rod Serling start, So, yeah. So yeah, and it's almost as if, I love science fiction. And one of the reasons that I like science fiction is because there's always like two serious outcomes. One of the serious outcomes you can count on, you can take it to the bank, is that it's the bad government. And then the other serious outcome is that it's some evil scientists working in conjunction with the bad government that has caused this catastrophe. And guess what? We've got some evil scientists, we've got some bad government, and we've got the Twilight Zone. Yeah.
And it always comes down to world domination. My favorite thing about science fiction, and I love science fiction too, but my favorite thing about science fiction is that it's fiction. And right now it is not. So that's kind of puts me off a little bit. But everyone is supposed to trust the Gates-funded Dr. Fauci, who is heading the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases, which alongside the U.S. government was funding the infamous Wuhan Institute of Virology, where the virus was likely to have spread from. The research was on bats with coronavirus, which was 96% similar to the novel coronavirus from the Yan'an caves between 2015 and 2019. Something here doesn't seem quite right at all, Cynthia. What does this information tell you, and where does it lead us?
Well, I'm not so sure that it came from the Wuhan laboratory. It also could have come from the United States. We have the situation at Fort Detrick having been shut down. So there are some things that we know. One of the things that we do know is that Fort Detrick was shut down because of leaks. Now, we don't know what those leaks were. We still don't know what those leaks might have been. But we do know that we've got this horrible research that's being carried out, not only at Fort Detrick, it's the repository of these dangerous pathogens, but we've got these level 3 and level 4 bio labs that are supported by the United States government, located all over the world. So what do we know about what's going on now? Well, we know that it was, I believe, 2010 in Australia that coronaviruses, I think it was SARS in particular, was studied, and the HIV was sort of inserted into, it was studied with respect to HIV, which is very interesting, given the 2020 study that came from India that got withdrawn. We also know that in 2015, the University of North Carolina, along with Chinese scientists, also were researching this gain of function. And so we've got a highly contagious disease, a highly contagious virus that has the earmarks of this gain of function that was studied at University of North Carolina. So, you know, we still to this day, we do not have a patient zero and we do not have a ground zero. So it's very difficult for us to say anything about the provenance of this virus when we have so little information. Moreover, it's like I was forced to ask myself, is this incompetence or is it intentional? Remember all of the brouhaha over the testing? The testing that never took place, the testing that FDA said and CDC said, don't test, up in Seattle, when the nursing home presented, the patients were this disease and the US government said, don't test. And the testing was done. And then the tests were botched. And even right now, we don't even know what they're testing. What are the tests testing?
Any form of coronavirus, you know, the 60 different kinds of coronavirus. I don't know, pneumonia, heart attacks.
We can get lots of results, but I mean, it's sort of like, I shouldn't say this because I don't really know, but it's like you take the high cholesterol, the cholesterol test, right? And you can measure it all the way down to the minutest microgram, But then what exactly are you really testing? Is it, a propensity for heart attacks or strokes or whatever? And it turns out that that's not the case. So what are you testing in all of these tests?
After 1,000 years, they still can't even figure out if coffee is good or bad for you. One study will say it prolongs your life. The other one will say it'll give you a heart attack. So, I mean, who are we trusting in this situation? And it always disturbs me to see scientific quote unquote consensus and everyone just going along with whatever some scientist group says because they seem smarter than us. And maybe they are. They very well could be. Maybe they're an evil genius. Maybe they're a good person. I don't know. But who am I supposed to trust? And without that knowledge within myself, my background in that kind of community, I don't know. But one thing I do know is that people are utilizing a crisis here. And it's hard for me to believe that it isn't either the US government or China or one of the members of the world governments between China, the US, or any of these countries, because they've done absolutely evil things in this time. And right now we're witnessing the biggest power grab in world history by far. People on both the left and the right are complacent with the enforcements, while people from the left and the right are also demanding an end to the enforcements. Could this lead to something like a civil war, in your opinion? It seems like there's people on both sides of the political spectrum are fighting with each other. This has caused more divide. I've never seen so many of my Facebook friends outside of an election just delete me and get angry because I feel one way or another about a virus. Do you see this potentially leading to something like a civil war?
Well, we know that there have been lots of people who have been trying to stoke some dissension. And you remember, I guess it was maybe 5 years ago, maybe, when the Russian social scientists came out and said the United States was going to disintegrate. So, we've got this sort of as an undercurrent. Now, anytime divide and rule can be activated, I can guarantee you that we, the people, are not going to be the winners of it.
Yeah.
And so more than ever, look, the name of your platform, alternative media. And so the fact is that if we go to the left, so-called left, and so-called right, because now what they have successfully done is they've created a faux left and a faux right. And so now you've got the faux left and the faux right, who are all supported by the same folk, fussing at each other. We are the bystanders. We are the ones, the audience, and their goal is to get us sucked up into that. But what I would rather see is that you and I are talking together, and then we provide a different platform, a different way of thinking, and also a different way of being, so that we're not caught up in the fear porn. We're not caught up in the government lies, the scientific lies. We have one objective, and that objective is for the truth. We are truth seekers. And then whatever happens, at least we can deal honestly from the platform of, well, this is the fact, and this is what we've got to do in order to save ourselves from the pernicious 1% who have never ceased in trying to control us.
And especially in this case, the 0.001% who've made an accumulated, I believe, $260 billion collectively off of this crisis so far. It's the biggest power grab and the biggest boost of their income of the billionaire class in history, in world history, since this has happened. And everyone has to be asking, who benefits from this? Who benefits? And it certainly isn't us. And what really concerns me right now, Cynthia, is that there is such an unbelievable level of technocracy we're witnessing take place. Artificial intelligence, potential for ID 2020, people getting tracked everywhere, people getting followed everywhere. And they're really using this crisis to the best of their advantage. And I wonder, are they going to be taking away any of these advantages that they've created for themselves once this is all done, whatever done really means in this day and age?
Whatever done means. Well, look, after September 11th, the Patriot Act was sitting there ready, and we're still trying to get it repealed. So, you know, it was, oh gosh, now my colleague from from across the aisle, Republican, who fought to put the 5-year sunset in.
Mm.
Because he fought to put the sunset in, of course, he was kicked out of the Congress by the people who want to use the Patriot Act and who are using the Patriot Act. And now we have NDAA, you know, things are worse.
Yeah.
And we never are able to win back the freedoms that we lose. Mm-hmm. So by time now is for us to recognize that we don't need to lose any more of our freedoms. If the Constitution means anything, it means something right now. We don't need it in good times. What we need is the Bill of Rights in bad times.
Yeah, and I should add, by the way, you were replaced by Representative Hank Johnson. And Hank Johnson being the guy who said that Guam might sink if too many people go on it. He's been pushing a new gun bill right now. And I know you come from the Democratic Party. You were with the Green Party. You consider yourself a libertarian. Today, I have to ask, though, I mean, regardless of left or right, there seems to be a major grab for any form of defense against these intrusions into, you know, individual liberties right now. So what we're witnessing right now is these attempts, this bill, I believe it's 5717, sponsored by Hank Johnson, to take away guns. And people cannot protest. It's illegal to protest right now. You could go to jail in places like Virginia for 1 year if you're out in the streets and you don't have a good reason. 1 year in places like Maryland. I mean, what is the next big power grab that they're going to go for? I mean, they seem to be really going for the throat right now.
You're absolutely right. They're going for the throat. And that's why I support the people who are protesting and saying, open up. And, you know, I have a legislative record. While I was in the Congress, I was enthralled by the Chuck Schumer anti-gun position. But when Hurricane Katrina came along and I saw people with their Second Amendment rights being deprived of them, that's when it struck me, oh, wait a minute. So now the civil liberties, including the right to own a gun, is something that was enshrined in the Constitution for a reason. And if I were going to get rid of something, I would not get rid of the guns. I'd get rid of the government.
Yeah. Yeah. And that really goes to what you were saying before, Cynthia, the idea of, you know, well, people need to get their Bill of Rights back. That can, you know, at what point do people kind of sit back and go, governments on, regardless, the left or the right, are going to slowly encroach on freedoms. And maybe we shouldn't be asking the government or protesting and asking the government to give back freedoms. Maybe we need to be taking them back.
We just need to take them. That's right. That's right. And that's what the protests now in the various states, that's what's happening. And I did an interview yesterday that had left me stupefied because this so-called progressive person is reeling because people are exercising their freedom of assembly, their freedom of speech, and what could ever be wrong with that? So exercise it, because I guarantee you, if you don't exercise it, you're gonna lose it. Yeah. And this group of people who are in power now, you know what they're saying? They don't want the Congress they want them to vote by distance. That's the most ridiculous thing. They don't work as it is. Well, maybe that's a good thing too. But I mean, you know, the fact that we're locked down and they want to be locked down, but they have the entire apparatus of the state at their disposal. It's outrageous what we have settled for. Now, let me tell you the importance of your platform. I am going to go for a minute to my Twitter page, where I just did a poll. It's just completing. And so I asked the question, what kind of leadership would you rather have? So basically, what I was asking is, are you satisfied to have members of the deep state? Are you satisfied letting them select your leaders? And then I said, well, or would you rather have authentic leadership that comes from the community, that you know has been proven and tested, and that can be relied upon to represent your interests? Then what came in, that was a choice that came in first. But what came in second was don't know the difference. So the fact that media no longer is a place for information, it's a place for disinformation or misinformation. It's no longer a place for education or knowledge. It's a place that furthers ignorance. And so this is what we get. So that there's only a few of us who understand how critical it is that we have the reins of self-determination totally. And that also means selecting leaders who can represent us and who will represent us and be true to us. Now, I have a project that well, it's actually my son's idea, but I'm working on it. You know, these intentional communities. So basically, what I think we need to do is what the people of Venezuela began to do after their Bolivarian revolution became attacked. Well, first of all, Hugo Chavez was gone, and then Maduro came, but Maduro is no Chavez, and then the attacks against the attacks from the United States against their right of self-determination never ceased. And the same is happening with us. So basically, we need the more and more intentional communities. And so my son wants to do an intentional community where we can get together and practice our sovereignty, exercise our sovereignty, rely on each other, and create community rather than whatever this is that's out there. Because James Corbett said something very good. He said, every time they say track and trace, contact and track for this, COVID thing, which in Georgia, they actually started knocking on doors and taking blood from people.
At the recommendation of the World Health Organization, I should add, which was headed by Tedros, who is one of the heads of Ethiopia's Communist Party. Just got to put that out there.
Okay, so if Corbett said, instead of saying contact and track, contact and trace, just say Big Brother.
Yeah.
And so that's where we are now. We are in a Big Brother state. And I don't care if it's Big Brother or Little Brother. I don't want no brother.
Yeah.
So.
Right. And, it's almost like in many ways people are inviting the vampire in. There's that old saying, the vampire cannot enter your home unless you invite him in. And right now what we're witnessing is a lot of people looking at their home like their kennel, like they're good little slaves. They've been told, I have to stay in my house. They told me I had to. They're repeating mantras from the media, just repeating them. They don't understand them. They're not listening to a lot of epidemiologists, virologists, and immunologists that differ from what the mainstream is saying, which is, right. There's a huge amount of them. They are just willingly enslaving themselves in their own home and just saying, hopefully the government, which clearly created this in the first place, will save us from the thing they created. And everyone says, don't trust these doctors that are going out against the mainstream doctors. Trust Bill Gates, who has no background in being a doctor. People in Africa, people in India hate Bill Gates for the things they've done there. I mean, how do you wake people up from this stupor when so many people are just bowing down to it so easily?
Well, that's the thing. I don't know. And, you know, if you conduct a poll and 46% of the people don't even know who's a good guy and who's, you know, who's a bad guy, I mean, that's kind of elementary. If we can't figure that out, then imagine how much more we can't figure out. And that's why it's difficult for people like you and me
right.
to get critical mass, because people are confused.
And that's what scares the hell out of me is I've read up on the restrictions, the travel restrictions for every single country in the world in the last week. It was painstaking, it was terrible and depressing. And what I found out was that other than Iran, basically every country in the world is closed to tourism unless you have a British passport in a couple places. But to me, it just looks like a prison planet at this point. And I want to get into something else that I feel it very much relates to this issue and that a lot of people are just not looking at. Poverty kills far more than any virus. Alongside government control, central banks are printing away and millions are out of work. So the entire economy is currently collapsing. This is a global depression. How does this trickle down to the average person? How is this going to affect people? It just seems like it's going to end up killing way more people than the virus itself.
Well, yeah. What can I say about
Yeah, well, I mean, as far as poverty goes, I mean, there's so much poverty as it is. People are already struggling to get by, and now they're facing the biggest global depression in history. I mean, how are people going to make up for that when the government says, stay in your house, don't work, don't make money?
I don't think you don't make up for it. And here's the thing is that people, whoever that 0.1% is, they just demonstrated that they have the power to shut the globe down. That's what they showed us. And so now what do we do in face of that? I think we don't have any choice. Once we comprehend the nature of this virus, then we've got to fight the other viruses that have come along with this virus. Mm-hmm. And so that is something that I'm trying to figure out, because I want to know, to whom do I need to turn in order to save myself and, you know, those who are affected. What is it that we can do to save ourselves and to change the trajectory that this country is on, that we the people are on? What can we do? We don't have critical mass, you know, and you are on your island, and this is what they want us to do. This, you know, this whole idea of 6 feet apart, so that, you know, we as individuals, we're on an island. What is it called? Atomization. So society becomes singular, and there's no community, and there's no unity, there's no community. And this is what our future is. And, you know, no. So sociologists would say, and this is what you have to do in order to stop this or deconstruct this. And their sociologists are saying, this is what you have to do in order to build up the alienation and the isolation, the atomization, to use a sociological term, of what we're experiencing now.
And I do want to take something very positive out of this, because I have faith in humanity. I have faith in people eventually coming together and doing the right thing. I think people will only take so much. I think at some point, when you have no way to pay the rent, no way to pay the bills, and the government's telling you it's for your own good, it doesn't feel like it's for your own good. And people will eventually start feeling that a lot more so. And I really do hope so. And out of hard times create strong men. It's that old saying, you know, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times. And it goes in a circle, or women too, obviously. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on the most positive aspects out of this. What can we take away from all of this insanity that we're witnessing around the world? What can we take away from it that in some way could give us faith or some kind of positive takeaway?
Well, I think there's a lot of positive that we can count on or just experience. One, even despite the fact that um, the people who were at the food bank, for example, at the church, and they were in trouble, but still there was this sense of community that brought the volunteers together. There's not enough volunteers, but brought volunteers together to say, I want to help. Mm-hmm. And so despite, I'm happy that the airplanes aren't polluting up in the sky, and that, I can go outside and I can hear so many birds and the woodpeckers. We've got woodpeckers here, and I can experience that. But at the same time, I understand that we do need to create a new normal. The normal of yesterday was unacceptable to me anyway. So now we have an opportunity to create a new normal. And the only way we can actually begin to do that is to experience in its fullest totality that which exists right now.
Right.
And then go within ourselves and think about what our priorities are. Think about what it is that we really want to do. And remember, there's one thing we've got to remember, and that is that me and you on a screen is not togetherness, because they are also redefining what together means. But together means that I can touch you and I can feel you. I can, of course, we do that now. Mm-hmm. It's mediated by technology, their technology.
Yeah.
But there's another way of being, and we must maintain our humanity by experiencing that other way of being. Yeah. So that means that we touch each other, we feel each other, we love each other, we reach out to people who are different than us as well, and then really create the kind of community that we want. We know, I had one student, I used to teach. I don't know what I'm doing now with my job, so I don't know if I'm going back or if I'm staying here or what, but I would teach a course about change. And I would ask my students, what kind of change do you want to see? Their project in the course was to create a change project that was the first step of creating the change that they wanted to see. One student reached out to me and said, Miss, it appears that COVID-19 is somebody else's change project. So now what we've got to understand is, yes, there are changes that will happen as a result of COVID-19. Are they our changes? And if they're not, we need to get busy and create our change project as a result of this.
Yeah, I have a lot of faith in just seeing, for example, people on Bill Gates's Instagram page. Everyone is calling him out. Everyone says, we don't want your satanic mark of the beast system and all that kind of stuff. And, so there's definitely a sign of people being more awake. We just need more action on top of being more awake. Yeah. And so it's all good and fine for us to say we're awake. In fact, I think the majority of people are awake that something is wrong and something about this isn't right. And I'm in Mexico. Everyone I talk to says this is a big control, project to enslave humanity. It's a conspiracy. Every single person I talk to here says the same thing. They all say, if the government tells us you're not allowed to walk outside on a beach with your family, we're going to go anyway, and the police will go away because there's more of us than there are of them. So that gives me hope, and I just hope people enact in the U.S. and Canada and Britain, around the world, in the way that I'm seeing people react to it here in Mexico. I hope for the best in that. And of course, if for those that aren't yet aware, there is a huge amount of censorship happening in independent media. David Icke's YouTube channel was deleted yesterday. Edge of Wonder has been demonetized. We Are Change has been demonetized. Press for Truth has been. Many of the major independent medias. Alex Jones, no one even knows where he is anymore. We see clips from him every now and then. I don't even know how to watch his show. So, I mean, this is something that has become a big issue. Whether you like the people or not, whether you agree with everything or not, I stand for the right of people like Cenk Uygur, who is so far away from what I think, to be able to speak. And we all should be able to speak, and it's never been more important to be able to spread independent or alternative information to the mainstream media than today. And you have been doing it for so long from your positions, in many cases, your positions of power within the government, and you have changed the guard in many ways, and I really appreciate everything you've done. I want to get you on one more subject before we close this off, and you give shout outs to everything that you're doing. Recently, and I don't talk about aliens very often, but recently the Pentagon released footage of UFOs, and I have to ask, we're seeing all these videos come out allegedly showing aliens or UFOs. A lot of people say, well, actually it's secret programs, Project Bluebeam, stuff like this within the US government. But why now? And no one's talking about it. Nobody's talking about the fact that the Pentagon just said that aliens exist and they're releasing videos of it. It's 2020 when people talk about, or where the government says they're watching aliens and they're in some ways communicating with them, and nobody talks about it at all. What are your thoughts on this recent news? I wonder if you have any thoughts on this.
Well, I have a friend who sadly is now deceased. He actually was a JFK researcher, and I hired him to work in the congressional office so that he could sharpen our reactions to exactly this kind of thing, deep state events. Mm-hmm. And he used to tell me all the time that there was a RAND Corporation study that came out, and it listed all of the things that were going to happen, and that the very last the very last quote unquote revelation before the clampdown came, and the the Department of Pre-Truth or whatever it was, you remember from what was that movie with so was that there was going to be this discussion about aliens, right? That was supposed to be the last thing, and after that then the hammer comes down. So basically my attitude has been that the science faction that exists on the earth right now is such that it's so overwhelming that if you bring in the aliens, I just have enough right now on planet Earth to focus on. So that's my focus.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting timing. It almost seems like a perfect distraction. Like, hey, look over here, not over here. Or maybe it's a perfect time to release that kind of information because no one's going to pay attention to it because all you see in the media is coronavirus and the economy. And honestly, as someone that's in media and in news, I'm going a little bit crazy because it's the only thing that anyone could talk about. Meanwhile, Epstein still didn't kill himself. Julian Assange is still in prison. And what's happening? I mean, no one's talking about these issues where people are, in Julian Assange's case, being tortured in prison and being exposed, by the way, to if coronavirus is a real danger to that. And no one's talking about it. They all say we stand for journalism and free speech, and then look the other way when it isn't.
But they lie. They lie. And it's just like the science fiction stories, the novels or the movies. It's always the bad government and we know that they lie. We know this government lies. But now one of the silver linings is that if Trump during the campaign said drain the swamp, now we know that the medical industry is as much a swamp as the political side. Mm-hmm. So, these things are being revealed, and you're right that by way of these revelations, people are waking up. It's just that we have to have a place for them to go. Mm-hmm. And that's the next part of the revolution that we need, is we need to provide places for them to go. You're doing that with your alternative media platform, but we also need to do that with political participation as well, with alternative political parties. We cannot allow the Democrats and the Republicans, who are same bird,
Pepsi
different wings, we cannot allow them to control our destiny.
And yeah, it's never been more important to stand up to these things, and obviously these distractions, and obviously a lot of people are showing their true tyrannical colors these days, and I think that might be a very good thing for us in the long term. We will try to keep people updated on this alien stuff. I don't know what's going on, guys, but with that said, as we close this off, can you let everyone know where they can find more of your work and the projects you're working on and support the work that you do?
Okay, well, I'm very active on social media, so you can find me on Twitter. You can find me on when I'm not in prison, but you can find me in in Facebook. I mean, Facebook prison, but I've been in prison too. But and today is World Journalism Day. I'm glad you mentioned Julian Assange. Let us remember that one of our premier journalists is being tortured, and we hope not to death. My website is allthingscynthiamckinney.com, and my current project is a book on the coronavirus, COVID-19, when China sneezes. So I've got economists from China as well as the United States. I've got political observers writing about what they see happening as a result.
Coronavirus. What's that again? Oh yeah, that thing that we're. Well, I look forward to reading that, and I'm always happy to have you on the program. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Like what you see here, don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar. We really can't do it without you. We've been so insanely shadow banned, about 90% at this point, and 95% demonetized. As Susan Wojcicki, the CEO of YouTube, comes in and says that she is shutting down quote-unquote controversial content and cutting out the views on this controversial content by 70%. She's been bragging about it. We need your help more than ever in this battle for truth in information. You guys are what keeps us alive, so we really appreciate just even $1 a month makes a huge difference. If everyone could give just $1 a month, we wouldn't even have to worry about competing against the mainstream propaganda networks. You can also donate to our Bitcoin address on the screen for you to scan if you please, as well as in the comments and description. Liking and sharing makes a big difference as well, and finding us on alternative social media platforms like float.app, that's flote.app, makes a huge difference. We're at Josh Sigurdson as well as at Wham. Float is replacing Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon all in one with encrypted private messaging, and of course monetization on videos for creators, live streams with super chats in crypto, and most of all, no algorithm, because at the end of the day, it's all about reach, guys. This is all about actually reaching people with the message and waking up the public. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, Minds, BitChute, all sorts of different platforms. Try to follow us on as many things as possible, because very soon this channel will very likely just be completely deleted from YouTube, and you'll never see us again, and you'll be stuck with only the mainstream networks. Also, come on out and see us at Anarcho Vegas 2020 in Las Vegas, Nevada in July, where such speakers such as G. Edward Griffin and many others will be speaking. You could use promo code WHAM on your VIP tickets and save 10%, as well as buy extremely cheap tickets for just $20.20. You won't find a cheaper conference than this with such amazing names. Check anarchovegas.com for more information on that. We hope to see you out there. And anyway, I really appreciate all of you guys joining us. You make it possible for us to survive in this volatile, propagandized climate. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.
Bye.